Alrighty, this is Chapter 1, Section 4, Contemporary Perspectives. By the 1900s, some psychologists have begun to claim that our EQ, or emotional quotient, is important, if not more so than our IQ, or intelligence quotient. Emotional intelligence refers to the ability to recognize and understand your own feelings as well as those of others. All right, the role of biology. The biological perspective of psychology emphasizes the influence of biology on our behavior. Biological psychologists assume that our mental processes, which is our thoughts, our fantasies, and dreams, are made possible by the nervous system. They point to key components of the brain psychologists look for the connections between events in the brain, such as the activity of brain cells in behavior and mental processes. They use several techniques such as CAT scans and PET scans to show which parts of the brain are involved in various mental processes. Biological psychology has shown that certain parts of the brain are highly active when we listen to music, and other parts are active when we solve math problems. Biological psychologists have also learned that certain chemicals in the brain are connected with the storage of information. And what that is the formation of memories. That's how we remember things. We store things in our brain. We can think of it. All right, hormones are chemicals that glands release into the bloodstream to set in motion various body functions such as growth or digestion. Genes are the basic units of heredity, the passing on of physical or mental characteristics genetically from one generation to another. Biological psychologists study the influence of genes on personality traits, psychological health, and various behavior patterns. Okay, the evolutionary perspective. Tied to biology, the evolutionary perspective focuses on the evolution of behavior and mental processes. British scientist Charles Darwin theorized that in the struggle for survival, the most adaptive organisms have a greater chance of enduring. For example, people who are naturally resistant to certain diseases are more likely to transmit their genes to future generations. So that is to say that if you have Taino, Indian, Native American blood in you, you were most likely a descendant of someone who naturally resisted certain diseases like smallpox, typhus, malaria when the Europeans came over from Europe into the New World. Now, Taino Indians, if you are of Dominican descent or Puerto Rican descent, you are most likely Taino Indian, just like my wife. Evolutionary psychologists suggest that many kinds of behavior patterns, such as aggression, are examples of adaptive behavior, age-appropriate behaviors. These psychologists believe that people learn to act in certain ways for their survival, and then they pass this behavioral down. They pass it down, sorry. All right, the cognitive perspective. The cognitive perspective emphasizes the role that thoughts play in determining behavior. Cognitive psychologists study mental processes to understand human nature. They investigate the ways in which people perceive information and make mental images of the world, solve problems, dream, and daydream. Cognitive psychologists, in short, study what we've referred to as the mind. The cognitive tradition has roots in Socrates' know thyself. We talked about that a little bit in the previous lesson. So, cognitive psychologists sometimes refer to our brain as computers as well. Think of your brain as a computer and the way it works. You have storage, you have different processors going off at the same time, retrieving information. Your memories are your hard drive. Cognitive psychologists believe that people's behavior is influenced by their values, their perceptions, and their choices. For example, an individual who interprets a casual remark as an insult may react with hostility. But the same remark directed to another person might be perceived with a very different reaction by somebody else. So you can call me whatever you want. It's not going to affect me personally. But if you said it to somebody else, they might get upset. So be careful with your words because you never know how somebody might react. But sticks and stones will break my bones, but names will never hurt me. That's for sure. All right, the humanistic perspective. Humanistic psychology considers people's personal experiences to be the most important aspect of psychology. Humanistic psychologists believe that self-awareness, experience, and choice permit us to invent ourselves. In other words, they enable us to fashion our growth in our own ways of relating to the world so we go through life. Unlike behaviorists, who assume that behavior is caused largely by stimuli or a thing or an event that makes us react, that act upon us, humanistic psychologists believe that we are free to choose our own behavior. So you have free will. This is the humanistic perspective of psychology. We have the choice to choose our own behavior. We have free will. The humanistic perspective views people as basically good and desiring to be helpful to others. Humanistic psychologists help people explore their feelings, manage their negative impulses, and realize their potential. Meaning, what can you become? All right, the psychoanalysis theory. This perspective stresses the influence of unconscious forces on human behavior. And Sigmund Freud came up with this theory or perspective. And Sigmund Freud believed that aggressive impulses are common reactions to the frustrations of daily life, and that we seek to vent these impulses on other people. Because we fear rejection or retaliation, we put most aggressive impulses out of our minds. But by holding aggression in, we set the stage for future explosions. So he was big on make sure you vent your problems. Make sure you talk about your problems because they're just going to build up and eventually you're just going to explode. All right, the role of experience. The learning perspective emphasizes the effects of experience on behavior. In the views of many psychologists, learning is the essential factor in observing, describing, explaining, predicting, and controlling behavior. However, the term learning can have different meanings in psychology. For example, some psychologists believe that people act and react because of their learning histories and the influence of their situations, not because of choice. Behavioralists emphasize importance of environmental influences that focus on the learning of habits through repetition and reinforcement. Reinforcement, if you remember, is if you do something good, I'm going to give you a piece of candy. That's reinforcing. If you complete your schoolwork on time, you can go home early, or you can end class early. Social learning theory, in contrast or opposite to this theory, social learning theory suggests that people can change their environments or create new ones. Interesting. Social learning theory holds that people can learn intentionally by observing others. However, people's expectations and values influence whether they choose to do what they have learned and how they do it. You can always change your environment. That is true. When you're old enough and you don't like where you live, try getting out there and exploring other places, getting to new environments. I'm originally from Pennsylvania, around the Philadelphia area. It's not that it was a bad area. It's not that I didn't really like it, but I wanted to be near the ocean, so I moved to New Jersey, and now I live by the beach, and I feel like my life has improved significantly. My mental health, my physical health has improved significantly because I chose to do that. I changed my environment because ultimately I wasn't very happy where I was living in Pennsylvania. Oh, right. Moving on. All right, so social cultural theorists. They study gender, which is the state of being male or being female. Gender is not simply a matter of the human body. It involves a complex web of culture, expectations, and social roles that affect people's behavior. Okay, so according to the biopsychosocial perspective, that is a big word. Mental processes, or all the things that individuals can do with their minds, are influenced by the interaction of biological processes, human personality, and social factors. Now, in recent years, these psychologists have taken the approach a step further. And some psychologists now claim that our social relationships from birth have a direct impact on our biological development. Now, what am I talking about? So, according to this, or according to someone who would follow this perspective, the order in which one is born into a family can have a major impact on personality. So, firstborns are apparently responsible. I don't think that's true at all. My older brother, who is the firstborn, is not really responsible. He's not really motivated. He's not really controlling. He is reliable. All right, middleborn. So if you were a middle child, feels left out, peacemaker, social, adaptable, people pleasurer, can be rebellious. Can you be rebellious? Maybe. Go between. Lastborns. Okay. Uncomplicated. All right, I'm a lastborn. I guess I'm uncomplicated. Manipulative. I don't feel like I manipulate people. Seeks attention. Nah, maybe. I don't think so. Self-centered. Am I self-centered? Yeah, my mother called me self-centered my entire life. Fun? Yeah, I'm fun. Social? Nah, I don't really see myself as social. Charming? I don't know. You be the judge. Outgoing? No, I'm not really outgoing anymore. I feel like I relate with more of the firstborn than the lastborn, but I always felt like my brother and my relationship, I always felt like I was the older brother. So maybe that's why I took on that role. Okay, the only child, seeks approval, sensitive, leader, confident, center of attention. Yeah, that's true. Mature of their age, maybe. Consciousness, responsible, and perfectionist. So take a look at this chart, see where you fall in with your family and your siblings, and see if you can relate to this. See if you think it's wrong. See if you think it's right. All right, cultural diversity in psychology. All right, like many other academic fields, psychology was once dominated by white men, but now in recent decades, most psychologists today are women. And the last thing we're going to talk about today is Kenneth Clark. In 1954, when the Supreme Court overturned the separate but equal doctrine, it cited Clark's groundbreaking work on the effects of discrimination on personality development of both African American and white children. He basically did a study with, in one well-known study from 1947, African American children were asked to choose between white and black dolls after being given instructions such as, give me the pretty doll or give me the doll that looks bad. Clark reported that most children preferred the white dolls over the black ones and concluded that children were demonstrating their feelings that society as a whole preferred white people. It's crazy. But this study still happens today. You can watch YouTube videos on it. It's pretty sad. All right, that's your lesson for today. Thanks for listening. Peace out.